Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam Caplan back in the saddle with us here on Inside the Birds, presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It's the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. You wouldn't believe this, folks, but it took Adam got back from his West Coast trip far easier than I did just from getting back from Florida over a quick weekend trip. Adam, I told people in the last podcast with Andrew that I was stuck 2 extra days in West Palm Beach. But to get back from Palm Beach International to Philadelphia, PHL, was an 11.5-hour excursion that included multiple delays, a cancellation of my flight, only to be reinstated 20 minutes later, a person that get kicked off my flight right before we left. So we had a taxi back to the gate. Then we couldn't land in Philadelphia because of the thunderstorm, so we had to circle around for an extra hour. Then a half hour at baggage claim, another half hour waiting for a shuttle to the parking lot, half-hour drive home. I left my mom's house in Florida at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and didn't get home till 2 in the morning. How's your day going?
So the crazy thing is now, so we could have been in the same state together because my flight to the Dolphins, or to Miami, to see the Dolphins hosting the Falcons on Tuesday and Wednesday, that got canceled. The only positive was that an American canceled it like in the morning, because I'm sure this has happened to a lot of people. Sometimes you show up for a flight and then it gets canceled like a half an hour before. You're like, oh, this is the worst. And because of the hurricanes, I could not get a nonstop until Wednesday. That defeated the purpose. I was not going to wait. And I had to reschedule a lot of things. So I'm going to see the Falcons in 2 weeks. But for you, what you were telling me, you may be keeping some stuff out of your journey. I don't know if there's the itinerary of issues that you had. I've had some bad travel stuff. I know if people listening have had the worst stuff, but yours might be the worst I've ever heard, to be honest with
you. It was really bad. I've had one other nightmare, storm-related nightmare, getting back from New Orleans via Houston to Philly that took about 20 hours because of storms everywhere. But this one I feel is worse. I had my kids with me and everything, and actually they were great. But this is the first time though that I've had someone had to get booted off my flight for intoxication.
There it is.
So that was an experience. Thankfully, this person actually left without making a scene, so you will not be probably seeing any viral videos of this
exactly,
on social media. But yeah, we're back. So we got a lot to talk about, right? The Eagles today on Thursday will have a walkthrough.
That's it. There's
because
nothing.
just a regular routine walkthrough, no media, and they just finished a stretch of 4 consecutive practices, and then obviously they'll have a preseason game against the Ravens on Friday. So we have a lot to talk about. There's injuries, there's player performance, there's movement, and then of course this game against the Ravens. So a lot going on with this team right now.
Yeah, look, the injuries, particularly at the inside backer, necessitated a move of signing at linebacker. We'll get into that later. Boy, this number 3 receiver job, it's fascinating. We'll get into. We'll break that down. We'll go inside the situation and where it stands and where this is probably going to be headed. But look, the bottom line is we finally have a preseason game tomorrow, which is good, against the Ravens. I know teams don't game plan. It's a team that they know a little bit. No, they're not in the same conference, but they know them from preseasons and whatever. There's a connection between the two teams from front offices and whatever. But the bottom line is, it's fascinating. It's the first time that your free agents that are going to dress and your rookies really get to shine with tackling, with actual tackling, and that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some of the injuries though that are really impacting the team. The biggest ones on offense so far. Paris Campbell, wide receiver, who was out pretty much that whole stretch with a groin injury, and right guard Tyler Steen has made his way back, but he missed a significant time there with the ankle. This is, to me, the moment with Paris Campbell that we talked about ad nauseam. It doesn't matter that he entered camp on a good streak. It doesn't matter about the rapport that he was establishing with Hurts. It doesn't matter that at one point he looked like the number 3 receiver, because he has not been able to stay healthy throughout his entire career. And this is the case right now. This groin has kept him out for quite a bit, and we don't know when he'll be back. But as he's been sidelined, Adam, other players have stepped up and given the coaches a chance to see what that slot role could look like without Paris Campbell.
Yeah, man, Britton Covey and Johnny Wilson have certainly taken advantage of it. I know you had the point a couple months ago that you had heard that They want to cross-train Wilson inside. That certainly happened. And Paris Campbell, he was basically he wasn't hand of the job, but he was the clear favorite. First 3 days in camp, it was like not any competition. And really, I believe it was the fourth day that you started to see other guys work in there. And it was that Saturday. It'll be 2 weeks from this Saturday that Britton Covey kind of broke out, and he's been certainly involved. And Johnny Wilson's been moved around a lot. We talked about him on our Patreon live stream last night. We gave you some good intel in there, but Johnny Wilson's been a good story. They just don't have any depth at the receiver position. That's it's not good. But I'll say this much: the only upside of not having quality depth is a lot of guys who normally wouldn't get a chance, like Johnny Wilson, a 6th-round pick, they're taking advantage of it. Now he could turn into quality depth. You don't know that. The young guys have to prove themselves. He hasn't played in a game yet. Plays tomorrow night. But you got to like what's come out from Eagles camp the last couple of days. We mentioned Covey. John Ross is fine. He seemed like he might have been dehydrated, or it was very humid in Tuesday's practice, but he was back working on Wednesday. And then we'll break it down when we before the end of the show when we break down what we're looking for in the game. But with sometimes injury comes opportunity. And that's what we've really seen at receiver right now.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of things when we get to offensive breakdown that I suspect and have heard are likely to happen as camp goes on with this offensive construct and number 3 wide receiver role. As for Tyler Steen, he did finally get back to practice. He was limited at first. He did have his first full practice on Wednesday, which was, I think, a moderate pad. It was in pads. But the practice itself was yellow moderate. So that's good. I think he took second team reps, and Mekhi Becton got the first team reps. I still think this one's, look, it's good that he's gotten back. There's no clear winner yet in this race. There's a lot of time to decide this.
It's definitely competition. There's no question about it. It wasn't really the Eagles' plan when they signed him, but again, with injury comes opportunity, and also because their plan was to cross-train Becton early. This has been fascinating. I mean, this is something I wasn't expecting, and I'm fascinated to see what Becton looks like in this game at right guard.
Absolutely, me too. Defensively, major injury. I mean, obviously, Oren Burks. It's tough. He got hurt in a the first day of camp, which you're doing very little. But it doesn't mean he can't get hurt. He got a knee injury, hasn't been able to come back. Brandon Smith, another inside linebacker, has also been out with a concussion. So they did have to address the situation. Not like last year where they went out and signed like potential starters, but they got a journeyman who's mostly played special teams in Shaq Quarterman, played his first 4 years with the Jags. Andrew had an interesting note that the Eagles had worked him out before camp started, I believe, had shown some interest in him. So they bring him in and again, depth guy. I don't want to call him camp body, but I mean, right now he's here because of the injuries.
Yeah, he's a really special teams player. He's never started a game. He's really, I mean, he only played for the Jaguars, so
yeah,
he's never gotten a chance to play much on defense. Very little, by the way. Very little snappage on defense. He's been a very key special teams player for the Jaguars, but they need depth. I'm kind of surprised that, well, obviously they worked him out, so at least they had a base to work with, but I'm a little bit surprised they didn't sign a veteran who's been there, done that. And we'll get into their coverage issues, which are not good, later on when we break down some more on the Eagles ILBs. But again, at least he's a guy that who was drafted. He was a 4th-round pick. He never kind of made it as a defensive player. Again, just a special teams player. And I'm sure we'll see him. And you never know, man. You never know when a guy gets an opportunity, though, what could happen. Because they got a lot of players at inside backer, but they haven't been great. And they need somebody to play consistently well. That hadn't happened yet.
That is absolutely true. And speaking of what you mentioned about coverage issues and depth issues, obviously we've said the one injury you don't want to see on this defense is to CJ Gardner-Johnson because of their coverage issues and their depth issues at safety. And well, he's out with a shoulder injury now. It's been said that it's not a big deal, but he is out of practice. He wasn't going to probably play in the preseason game anyway, so no big deal there. But I think what it really does is just illustrate where the Eagles are at that safety position when he's not there. Now you've got, guys like James Bradbury and Reed Blankenship as your first teamers, and then Avonte Maddox and Tristan McCullum as second teamers. It's dicey out there, man, especially with Mekhi Garner also dealing with a hamstring injury. Not that Mekhi is great, but he's been cross-trained there, and he's a young kid who you want to see some development from. But you wonder if there'll be a move made at this position if CJ is going to be out longer or if Mackay is going to be out longer. They should get some depth anyway, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Garner was moved from corner to safety. I don't think he's taking any corner reps this summer, and they need him to play safety because they're so light there. And Bradbury, by the way, he's got some work with the ones this week. So is Maddox when they've needed him to. So, yeah, you're right. They're in a tough way at safety. Tristan McCullum, he's got the ideal length. There's some athleticism to him. He's another guy that they've kind of taken a hard look at. Remember, they had him last year. This is where the preseason. Now, again, he's a long shot to make the team, extreme long shot. But you never know what these games are going to do. Look at Tanner McKee last summer. Didn't have a good training camp. And I get he's a quarterback, but I'm just giving you an example of when a guy lights it up in a game, you never know what could happen going forward. So we'll see what McCollum can do in this game.
We shall see. He was on the, he did make some plays last year on defense. I didn't think he was an extreme long shot. I know the numbers aren't great. If you're going to keep like 6 corners and 3 safeties, then he's probably, yes, he's a long shot. But because they're so thin there, you figure his length, his athleticism, it gives him a shot to make the team. But again, that kind of also is determined by the next 2 guys we're going to talk about. And that's Cooper DeJean, who's still on active NFI with the hamstring injury, and Sidney Brown, active PUP, coming back from the ACL. Let's see what happens here after the first preseason game, then the day off, then the next practice. I didn't get the vibe that Cooper would be ready to come back, but it's usually after a preseason game and then a day off in the middle of camp when you see a young guy who's coming back from something like Sidney Brown start to get back in a limited basis and work up. So we'll see.
Yeah, the timeline was 3 weeks, so that would mean mid-August, around the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow is the 9th, so maybe in a week or so he comes back.
Right. Their next practice would be the 11th, right? So because
Okay.
Saturday they'll have the off day, and then the 11th they'll reconvene.
And then you got Sidney Brown, who's taking the mental reps, running. I know he's doing well, but you got to it's an ACL reconstruction and rehab, so you got to let everything go through. You got to let time pass, and so he's been about week 1. We'll see if he's ready. But yeah, they're really light. Andre Sam's a guy that I'm very interested to see in this game because again, they're so light at safety. This is what the preseason is all about. Like Corey Clement, great example, undrafted free agent, who just kept getting better and better and better. And we know how that ended in 2017. They wouldn't have won a Super Bowl without him. So you never know what these preseason games are going to give you.
That's right. So that's basically the injury and transaction situation and how it's impacted the Eagles. We'll get into what we've heard on offense, defense, and preview this preseason game coming up as far as who to watch and why. First, we're going to pause to hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right. I know the big story of camp, Adam, is that Jalen Hurts has not thrown an interception. He's been very, very accurate in team drills, spreading the ball, doing a nice job there. And as we saw in the open practice, we did get to see the formational diversity that Kell Moore has brought to the offense. We saw motion. We saw orbit motion. Couldn't believe it.
By the way,
motion. Yeah. Kenny Gainwell running behind the quarterback at one point.
Johnny Wilson, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Wilson had an orbit motion. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, he's not the guy I thought would be the orbit motion guy at all.
You got it right out of my mouth, brother. I was shocked. I'd marked that down. I forgot to talk about our last couple shows, so I'll talk about it now. So you're right, man. This is what Kellen does, and I've been waiting for this because I saw it last summer with the Chargers, and all sorts of traffic. That's the thing with Hurts, and I'm so glad that he's handling it all well because this is what he's wanted. If you read the piece that from ESPN earlier this week, I enjoyed that piece. We'll probably talk about it more in a future show. That's not really pertinent right now because we're going over a lot of other stuff. But this is and by the way, this is not the first time we've heard about this. Jalen wanted more intermediate throws. He wanted other stuff happening. Well, guess what? He's getting it and then some.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been good. So, I mean, we generally get good reports from how the first team offense is looking. Now, again, right guard is a situation. that we can't say anything more on that other than we've got some preseason games and these guys got to get on the field, stay healthy, and show what they've got. Cam Jurgens, it was good to see him bounce back. He had left practice early. I think he was out the next day, so that'll be good. Be kind of curious to see how much over the course of the preseason that Jurgens plays, given that this is a new position, but he is a starter. Normally the starters don't play first preseason game, but here's a guy, and some starters don't play a whole lot in the preseason, but I think Jurgens is a guy that could probably use some reps, Adam.
All right, so a couple things. So we had said before training camp started, what we had heard was they're going to practice longer. That's definitely happened. This is the most minutes they practice in Sirianni's 4 years here. They're going longer, which is good. It's definitely a good thing. And with that, here's my next thing. I do wonder, and you were just talking about this. I do wonder because they've got next week in Foxborough, they're visiting before the preseason game. They're going to have one joint practice with the Patriots, and typically what teams do is they play the starters they practice the starters in the joint practice, and they don't use them in the preseason game. And that seems to me that what's logical, but with an asterisk. On your point, because of the new scheme, so much newness. Do they need to play these guys for the preseason? Maybe the final one as a tune-up because we don't have a fourth preseason game anymore. One way or the other, it would not surprise me because they're practicing longer. We have the longest practice of Sirianni's tenure was the open practice for the fans. It's great practice, by the way, for the offense. It was not for the defense, but again, it was long. So I just wonder. I wonder if they take a different approach because iron sharpens iron. I was with the Raiders last Saturday night, folks. They hit for 40 minutes. Live hitting, tackling, 40 minutes. I'm just saying. I just wonder. Maybe Nick thinks this over about being a little bit tougher and getting grinded out a little bit harder. Who knows?
I know we'd all love to see it. I mean, we're all throwbacks. We love the days of all the hitting. We know that that's gone. It's not going to come back. But it wouldn't be so bad to see a little tackling to the ground every once in a while.
Or no, just preseason. But maybe you want to. There's your tackling.
That's what I meant by if for us to see real tackling happen.
Yeah. I mean, but it's fascinating. I will see what happens. Some of the starters play last preseason. I don't know how many games they played, but I remember them playing. But and then so we just talked about receiver. Johnny Wilson certainly with Calcaterra. I mean, with Covey. Covey's been a great story. So is Wilson. And Anaya Smith, he's getting a lot of reps, but with the twos. But he needs to stop dropping passes. That's certainly. I'm not blaming this on. Well, he had the foot issue. He got that taken care of, and he missed a lot of the offseason. This is like he's dropped. I don't know. I don't have a count, but it's not any secret. Anyone that's been in practice, it's been too many. No, again, let's move this forward. Preseason tomorrow night. You never know what happens when it's real live. Maybe he's just not a good enough practice player, or maybe he's just having concentration issues. He needs to be in a game situation. But this is a guy that a lot of people we talked to before the draft and after the draft, you and I exchanged notes. And man, a lot of people high on Anaya Smith on what he could do as a receiver, gadget plays. All sorts of facets to his game that people like, but the drops got to be cleaned up.
Yeah, and that's big because you need to have your quarterback's confidence. And if he can have sort of a Patrick Robinson like turnaround and really seize hold if he can catch the ball and show what he can do, because he is probably, if you were to pick the most natural slot receiver who can do both, who can give you everything you need out of the slot, it would be him. But right now, Adam, what we're told is Johnny Wilson is really impressed in that position. He's done well, done what's asked for him, big body. So, when you're in 11 personnel and he's in the slot, he can block a little bit. He can throw his body in there and help you out. You don't need a ton of blocking from the slot. You just need capable blocking. Sure. But we've also been told Britton Covey is having an excellent camp, great route runner, smooth, gets in and out of his breaks really well, having a nice camp, also has earned the quarterback's trust. I just struggle in talking to people, I struggle to see him as a full-time slot because of the size. And so when you look at this, if it's not going to be a guy like Anias, someone's not going to seize this thing and be your full team, your first team slot guy like an Aguilar or a Jason Avant, or even what Quez Watkins is, you're going to be situational. And don't forget about what Grant Calcaterra brings as a flex tight end. I call it like a wolf and shit, like 12 personnel and 11 personnel's close, right? If Calcaterra and Goddard are out there, you get a bigger body in the slot, but you also get somebody who can help you move the chains. Now, if you want to stress the defense vertically, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, then maybe Calcaterra comes out. That's when you're talking about Covey or somebody else, maybe the Johnny Wilson. But I think 1st, 2nd down, you might see 12 personnel, but it's really an 11 personnel type of approach.
All right. So on your point, so I saw this with the Raiders last week with Brock Bowers. So Michael Mayer is their tight end last year. They drafted in the 2nd round, and then they shocked us by drafting a tight end in the 1st round.
Mm-hmm.
But Brock Bowers is not a traditional tight end. He's more of a flex tight end or a move tight end. That means he's not really an inline tight end. Like Mayer could do either. He's kind of built like Cole Kmet of the Bears. He's got really good size to him. And Mayer's 6'4.5", almost 270. Well, Bowers is nowhere near that size. He's built like a receiver or an H-back. Well, Calcaterra, let's move back to the Eagles. Calcaterra is not a blocker. He's a super athletic, run after the catch, move tight end. The only issue they have is when you play 12, and they will play some 12, all teams do. I don't see this Calcaterra being a Y. He's got to be a move tight end. So you're almost giving away what you're going to do. And I get it. You're saying you're going to flex him out, play him as a slot tight end. And certainly that's got great matchup possibilities, but you'd like your number 2 tight end, which he is clearly now. You'd like the guy to be able to block. And we're looking into it on his blocking, if it's been proved. We know he's trying. He's put some more muscle on, but it's never been a part of his game.
No, but I do think it'll be effective in the RPO game where you have Goddard as your inline tight end, and you can have Calcaterra as your flex, your slot receiver / move tight end, and be able to run the ball well if you want to run because you have a bigger body in the slot, or pull it out of the belly. You want to fire that slant or that quick route. Well, Calcaterra can give you that. He can get in the zone. He can beat some man coverage against a linebacker or a safety. So I think that's probably a good look for them if that's it for when they want to go for the RPO game.
You know what they can do, and I had not thought of this. They're doing it, but not quite the way you're saying it, but they probably will do it. So let's say they're 12 person. Well, it's technically on your point, it's technically 12, but it's really 11 because you've got Goddard on the field with Calcaterra. You could line up Calcaterra as the F or the slot receiver with Brown and Smith, and there goes your point. That's right. I don't. And by the way, why wouldn't they do that? Because no offense to Johnny Wilson, Calcaterra's a more fluid athlete. I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. And Calcaterra's never looked this good, by the way. I want to say he's number 81. He moves like we all know he's athletic, but he's never moved quite this fluidly, or whatever you want to say, with this kind of fluidity. It's been pretty remarkable. And don't forget, they do have Albert O, who could run.
Yeah. Well, look, and EJ Jenkins as well is a guy who can actually block. See, EJ Jenkins, I don't know if he can force CJ Uzomah off the roster. I think he'd have to be amazing, but he is a bigger guy. He's 250 pounds, and if he's already doing a nice job of catching the ball and getting upfield. He's made some really nice grabs from both Pickett and McKee. If he can show in these preseason, this is one of the guys when you say, who am I watching in the preseason?
Yeah.
EJ Jenkins, but I don't care if he catches no balls, right? Any balls, right? I care when they run out of certain personnel formations, does he throw his body in there? Is he capable blocker? Is he adequate? Can he do everything you need your what a number 1 or number 2 tight end theoretically could do? Could he do that to be a number 3 tight end on this team and knock Uzomah off? I don't know, but that's worth finding out.
Yeah, he's a little bit older. He's only in his 2nd year. He's an undrafted free agent last year out of Georgia Tech, former receiver who's converted to tight end. He's a big dude, just under 6'6", 250 plus. He does turn 26 in November. But the bottom line is he's got an opportunity here. And look, if they only keep 2 on the 53, they're going to have 2 on the practice squad. Teams usually have one way or the other 4 guys. You could have only 3, 2 on the active and 1 on the practice squad. You got to be careful because of game planning and situational stuff. You really like to have 4 at your disposal if you can. But EJ Jenkins he's number 84, by the way. He's worth developing. And that's, as you said, and I agree 100%. I really look forward to seeing his development because this is the kind of guy that you like to, and by the way, the Jets cut him. This is the kind of guy that you like to try to develop because there's something in his body.
Right.
And the Eagles have tried for years to convert these guys. Tyree Jackson, he was on his way before he got hurt. And he was with the Eagles last year on their practice squad after the Jets cut him. So we'll be looking for that for sure.
As far as running backs, Adam, I think this is the position that has the least amount of mystery. You know, you have Saquon Barkley is your running back, your lead ball carrier. Kenny Gainwell has had a nice camp. He'll be your number two. He lost weight to try to get a little more explosive. But even if he's not, I think he's your capable number two. You know he's reliable enough to help you move the chains. And Will Shipley has shown this week in practice. You know, Andrew DeCecco wrote about it, and it's been pretty obvious that Will Shipley's pass protection's got to. If you're gonna, they want him on the field to be able to run him on some routes and get him in the passing game. But in order to do that, you also have to be able to pick up a blitz in case you're kept in, and that's right now the area where he's far behind.
Yeah, I think with Shipley, we know this. Shipley's just more explosive than Gainwell. Gainwell's a better blocker. And the one thing I'm interested to see, because it's totally Kell Moore's offense, I'm just curious going forward, will they have what we call a Shipley package, where he comes in on third down, let's say it's 3rd and 5, because he's got great short area quickness. Maybe every once in a while they take Barkley off the field on 3rd down to give a different look. And obviously Gainwell is just not Shipley with juice. Shipley's got a better short area quickness. But Gainwell, who you mentioned losing weight, he definitely looks a little faster for him. There's no question. Boy, that not joint practice in the practice last Thursday, he definitely looked good. Now I get it, the linebackers overran, but he moved better. But the cool thing about Shipley is they have someone on the roster they haven't had as a backup, like someone had this kind of juice in a short area.
Oh, definitely. And I think that, I don't know if they're going to keep more than 3 or need to keep more than 3 running backs. So that might be your 3. And right now, no one's jumping out, whether it's Lou Nichols or Ty. I think Ty Davis Price has had some drops and some struggle in pass protection as well. So those will be guys, though, to take a look at in the preseason and see if maybe they show something there that you haven't yet seen in practice. Offensive line, I want to get your take on this. I talked to Andrew about it, but
okay,
man, when Becton and Steen were both unavailable, if you would have told me going into camp, if both those guys were unavailable, that Toth was going to be the guy. Toth gets it in at right guard. I would have been like, really? Over a Darian Kennard, over Matt Sharping, even over, if you would have told me Nick Gates would be on the team, I'd be like, wow, that's pretty interesting. We know Jeff Stoutland likes him. We know he's versatile enough to play all 3 positions on the offensive line. When you see him get that shot, this is a guy who's struggled at times in camp, like struggle snapping the ball at center, and it's not like he's jumped out in any way, but he's getting the opportunity.
They've had a relationship with Brett Toth, believe it or not, it goes back 5 years.
It's amazing.
Been on off the roster. Remember, they were so upset when the Cardinals claimed him. Like I could tell you, I remember you and I heard separately, like, man, they were pissed because they didn't think anyone knew about him. It's one thing with Noah Tungiai that I don't know how the hell. I mean, Chris Ballard somehow knew about him. I forget the real story on that. There was some kind of connection that Ballard had or found out that Tungiai was a guy that they should be claiming, but this one stunned them. And I give Stout credit. He's been out in front of this one. He will not give up on this guy. And you know what? We know he could play 4 positions, both tackle spots, center, and at least one of the guard spots. He probably could play all 5.
Yeah, I mean, can we say 3.5? Because I'm not sure I quite trust him as
or
my
how good
tackle.
Oh, a tackle. Yeah. I got it. I get it. No, I remember your line. If Brett Toth is out there.
He wasn't exactly a star at right tackle either, by the way. But that was the first time he got in that Ravens game in 2020.
And that was your line. If Brett Toth is out there, then that's not a good thing.
Right. And it was not a good thing.
Yeah. But look, okay, so he's shown he's got versatility. Well, again, preseason, this is what the preseason gives you, these 3 games, particularly this first one. Toth has a very good chance to play a lot, if not start this game. It's big for Keegan. There's no quite Dylan McMahon. Max Sharping got work with the 2s. He kind of moved up. And Nick Gates got work at guard, I saw. As I understand it. So he's a guy, as we were told, is a way better guard than center. You should know that if you're trying to figure out Nick Gates, number 61, who the Commandos cut. And the other guy that we really want to see in this game is Aneem Dankwa, the undrafted guy who's super long. He's really tall. I mean, he's got great length. He's been running with the 2s and 3s. Now, they got 3 preseason games, so he's going to get an extended look at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the whole offensive line will be really interesting to watch. I mean, we haven't heard or seen much of Darian Kennard after talking about him a lot. The Sharping, Matt Hennessy, how does he do? I mean, he's a guy who could have jumped in there at right guard, but they didn't move him up to right guard. They put Toth there instead. Trevor Keegan who has gotten some first team reps, now only at the left guard spot, though. So he might be limited in that he only plays left guard, but clearly they felt that he was playing at a decent enough level to put him in at first team over some of those other guys that we mentioned as well. And then the McMahon kid, who's an undersized center, he'll probably get a decent amount of reps against the Ravens as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, we've kind of last couple weeks we've covered about 30 offensive players. So, one thing before we move on, this is Jacob Harris. We haven't really talked much about him.
Right.
It's a guy that we really liked in the offseason. This is where. See, one thing I've learned from covering this business 25 years, just because a guy doesn't flash in training camp doesn't mean he can't make up for it in preseason games. So maybe this is a chance here working with, and by the way, with Tanner McKee looking as good as he has so far, he's got a rocket of an arm. Jacob Harris could run. He's healthy, by the way. I know he had an injury in the offseason, but he's good. This is where maybe McKee and Harris hook up here because they really need to figure out this backup receiver group, which is wide open.
Yep. Last year it was McKee and Tyree Cleveland, and then in the final game it was who's that guy? Johnny King, right? West Virginia, I think, who came
the tall
in.
guy.
Yeah, McKee just let it fly to him, and he made a couple of big catches.
There you go.
But yeah, so no, it's good that he's actually worked all preseason with Jacob Harris to get a chance to show it in the games.
Right.
All right, we'll transition to the defense in a second. Adam, the Phillies are out on the West Coast. They'll be coming home soon. And hopefully they'll have their issues straightened out and start to play a little bit more like the Phillies of May and June. And you can get tickets to see them easily using the GameTime app. It's the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch because they have killer last-minute deals. They have the all-in prices, the view from the seat that I love, and the lowest price guarantee. With all that, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Of course, you don't have to use it just for Major League Baseball games. You got Eagles preseason games, concerts. I'm taking my wife to a concert in a couple of days. I got my tickets on GameTime, so I'm excited about that. And all sorts of comedy shows you can get as well there too. And remember, last-minute tickets, the flash deals where you save even more with exclusive in-app deals on selected seats ahead of the game or the event. The zone deals allow you to save more when you choose a section and let GameTime choose the seats. They've got the all-in pricing that shows you the price right up front. You're not surprised with like 30 fees at checkout. You know what you're paying as soon as you click the button, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we also want to thank the flurry of new Patreon members that we have. Well, some of them are not new, but they have upgraded their membership to tier 2 or tier 3. Others have jumped aboard because they've heard about all the great bonus exclusive content we're giving, the new shows that we're about to embark on for the season and for the entire year, the intel that we're giving early, the Discord community chats, the Ask ITB live streams that now we're doing every single week for our tier 2 and tier 3 members as well. We're just adding constantly to this platform, and a lot of people have jumped aboard, and we appreciate that. And we encourage you to keep doing it, keep being the first to get all the great Inside the Birds intel, ad-free podcasts, no commercials, and immediately uploaded. You don't have to wait until 6 o'clock in the morning. Could be out the night before. It will be out the night before in most cases, right there for you. So you'll get it first. That's patreon.com/inside-the-birds.
That was a great chat we had last night. DeCecco and I did it. It was fun. And the cool thing about that is that, we get into a lot of different things that we normally wouldn't talk about here at school. We can get into a lot of discussions and give you more intel as you were talking about. So patreon.com/inside-the-birds. We really appreciate the support. It really does help.
Absolutely. Okay, the defense, Adam, we talked about the first time in a long time that the Eagles didn't have maybe like standout or veteran depth on the interior D line. They were going younger, no more Fletcher Cox, no more Javon Hargrave, right? No Contavious, not Contavious
Street.
Yeah, Contavious Street, right? You had a great nugget about the Eagles were the only NFL team without a vested veteran among the interior defensive line. So it was a concern. I think we could say a little bit alleviated so far, only because of a good training camp performance by Moro Ojomo, who from day one till right now, we continue to hear has been a standout guy in camp, gets a lot of he doesn't just get pass rush bursts, he does good job against the run. He's just done everything that's being asked for him and really standing out.
Yeah, let me add a couple things. He's not just doing well because they don't really have anyone else, which is kind of true, but he's just done a really good job. He kind of, if sometimes you're given an opportunity and they don't seize it, this guy's he's taken it. I mean, he's been very consistent. He's a top backup interior lineman for in this case. And Thomas Booker's going to get a look in this game. Gabe Hall, I cannot wait to see at some point. This is but like my training camp guy that I've had my eye on. He hasn't really done much yet, but he's going to get an opportunity. They just don't have a developed group, but Ojomo was getting a spot. We kind of knew this coming to training camp. It was going to be his run, and he's done a great job of taking the reins and running with it. And that's great. And then Tui Pelotu's top backup for Jordan Davis. They got to find one more guy, whether it's Thomas Booker, Gabe Hall. That's it. They got it. One of these guys has got to stick. And then what you can do is you can play the roster tango. You don't need a 10-year veteran. You need someone who's been there and done that. It could be a 4-year. A guy's only played 4 years. You can put the guy on the practice squad. But they need someone to call up or be ready. If there's an injury, because they just don't have anyone who's done it before. You don't know more. It's one thing come off the bench, or and if you're playing 15 snaps a game, it's one thing to play 50. That's a big deal. Like you just don't know because the guy's never done it before. And he's, again, we got to say this, he's a 7th round pick, but he's done very well.
Right.
But opposite him, the other 4 don't know. They don't know who that guy's going to be. And I don't know if they're going to know, but although the preseason will give them a lot of clues and answers. And the guys to look at in this game tomorrow night are Booker, 59, drafted by the Texans. Hall, as I mentioned, 96. It's pretty much it.
That's it's really interesting. And I think this has been consistent with past years just because of the way their team is assembled. But when they practice, their first team defense is on the field. It's usually it's a 5-man front. It's a Vic Fangio, unless they're going straight to nickel or a different, they're working on like just 3rd and long or something. But usually you got your 2 overhangs and your 3 interior linemen, right? You got your Jordan Davis, you got your Jalen Carter, and you got your Milton Williams with your 2 overhang players. But when they go to the second team, they don't have like as much depth there, right? So they usually have been playing just a typical nickel front. So your interior linemen have been Tui Pelotu and Ojomo, and your edge guys have been Brandon Graham and Nolan Smith. Right, usually, or they mix and match a lot of the overhangs. And Huff usually gets first team with Sweat, but then they'll mix Nolan Smith in there too. But yeah, they only play with 2 edges and 2 interior tackles once the first team is off.
Oh, and nickel. That's what all teams. Yeah. Cosellas talked about that last year. He goes, in nickel, all teams matter if you're 34, 43, 5, what in this case, your 5-man front. In nickel, you're going to have, and by the way, the edges more often not play with their hand down in nickel. Right. So it's just it's interesting. We'll see what this thing looks like. I know the teams are very vanilla in the preseason. In terms of blitzing, although I remember you and I talking about it, I don't know how many years ago it was. One team came after the Eagles offense. They were blitzing. I don't know who it was, but it was kind of comical. You never know.
So that's basically the front. We haven't really talked a lot about Josh Sweat. He's usually the guy who dominates camp. I'm not really worried about it yet. I think we're just going to have to see how the first few weeks of the season go, to see if he's back
healthy.
And the same Joshua. He is healthy. He's fine, but we got to make sure he's still got the same juice that he had. If not, there's some hungry guys here, whether it's Nolan Smith or even a Jalix Hunt, who's performed well in camp. I mean, he's a long shot to get on the field week 1, but again, they have to figure out, Bryce Huff, is he playing 50 to 60% of the snaps? So Nolan Smith has practiced well. They've got guys here. I think just figuring out the roles is the deal. And we've seen, so here's what we've seen from Vic. We've seen a decent amount of 5-man rushes. So he's blitzing a little bit there, but we've also seen the 4-man rushes, but with an overhang who drops and a linebacker who blitzes. So that caters nicely to talking about the inside linebackers, Adam. Linebackers blitzing, good. Linebackers covering, not good.
Bad. By the way, one of them's a 9 technique. One of the in nickel, one of the edges is a 9.
Yeah, they'll spread out, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, they're great. I mean, not great, but they have plenty of depth at edge. That they don't need to sign anybody. It's just they got to get someone who's consistent. You mentioned Sweaty. We'll see if he's back to where he was. Bryce Huff is still learning. No, this is a completely different scheme. Got to keep telling people that this is different from what he's a starter now, but this is the Niners run. Excuse me. The Jets are running a lot of what the nine techniques, and it's just different from what the Jets run with what Huff was playing in. So this is different for him, and mentally it's got to be challenging for him. He's got to get it.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to get it. He was a hand down pass rusher. Now he's standing up a lot.
Yep.
So
By the way,
go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, every time that Vic does do a sim pressure where he's blitzing a linebacker in a 4-man rush, that means he's dropping somebody. So
he is.
I feel here's what I'm interested in. Like Josh Sweat is not a guy you want dropping, and he has no natural drop and defend the hook instincts. Bryce Huff does because he's done that before, but you're not paying that guy to drop. Like, everybody's got to do it every once in a while, but if you're going to run 6 or 7 sim pressures a game, you don't want him dropping back 6 or 7 times. First of all, you're predictable. Second of all, maybe your best pass rusher. So then it creates an element of maybe getting Nolan Smith on the field more with Huff that gives you that ability to rush one, drop one, rush the other, drop the other, because both of those guys are a little bit more natural at it.
Yeah, look, the edges here, as I was telling you, that the coordinator we talked to said in Vic's scheme, the edges are going to drop and they're going to rush. They're not there to play the run. They're there to sim pressure, drop a little bit. It's typical stuff with zones. This is what of these guys coach the scheme. A lot of them do this, not just Vic. So we'll see. But Huff, I'm not worried about him. I know other people are panicking, but I'm not. I don't cover this business too long as you have. This stuff usually works out. I'd be surprised if he does become a good player for them.
I would agree with you. Now, at linebacker, as we'll talk about, no surprises here. I mean, this is to me my biggest concern overall for the team. It's that these guys can play downhill okay. These guys can blitz really well. For Eagles linebackers, this may be the best set of blitzing Eagles linebackers in a long time, collectively. Coverage, not good. Not good at all. It hasn't been good, whether it's Nakobe. I heard Zach Bond. Here's how it was put to me. For a guy who's not played the position, he knows what he's supposed to do and he knows where to be. So he gives maximum effort. He's been okay, but that's comparing him to someone who has not played the position. If you compare him to standard inside NFL linebacker who's played it in college and played 3 or 4 years in the NFL, it's not going to look the same way. And Nakobe Dean, Greg Cosell was the first to warn us this, Adam, like coming out of college. He was a blitzer on third down in college. He was not a coverage guy. He was a downhill player and a blitzer. And you can get that out of him now. He didn't play at all as a rookie, very little. Barely played last year. So he just doesn't have a ton of experience with that either.
So we know in this front, you only have 2 linebackers in the field. We don't call Huff and Sweat are not linebackers. I don't care what anyone says they're not. They're edges. In fact, that's what Vic said.
Yeah.
Vic said in his press conference. We kind of clear that up not that we didn't know that, but I was glad that he said it. Well, he's old school. He goes, because he calls a nickel a slot. Goes, corner is a true outside corner.
Mm-hmm.
And he calls his DNs edge rushers. He doesn't call them DNs. He calls them edges, which I love. So anyway, yeah. So my friend John Hansen from fantasypoints.com, when the late great Jim Johnson was still the Eagles D coordinator, as great as the defenses were, they were terrible. They were usually the worst against tight ends. I'm telling you, this defense, based on what I've seen and what I know and what you know, for fantasy, anytime I got a tight end going against the Eagles, I'm playing them. And in PPR leagues for tight ends, or if you have
receiver, back, maybe even
slot receiver, yeah. Because and by the way, on that, you can match up anyone. It's not just tight ends. You can do running backs, slot receivers, anybody. God.
Yeah, if I'm the Giants, Malik Neighbors was already a guy who could play the Z, right? You can move him inside. The way he's had a camp, I'm trying to put him inside at least 7 or 8 times in that game and match him up. Yeah,
recognition, man. They're just. Again, they have plenty. They don't need any more ILBs. The problem is they need guys who could cover. They're going to have 2 linebackers out there the entire game. So it's just like, okay, what's the OC going to do? Who's he going to go after? And we don't know about Bond in coverage yet. We're truly in coverage yet when he's been put in conflict. You're right. They can get downhill, but man, coverage is a problem.
Now, making this a very Eagles situation, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., the rookie 5th-round pick, may have the best coverage instincts of all of them, but of course, he lacks the speed, the athleticism, the measurables. But you know what? If you're playing smart football, that's like TJ Edwards, right? If you're playing smart football and you know where to be and you're fundamentally sound, which Trotter has shown to be so far in camp. That's the intel we've gotten. Then you're going to get on the field. It may not be immediately, it may be immediately. I don't know. We'll see. But it would not shock me if Trotter finds his way on the field at some point during the season, simply because he has the best understanding of how to play that position.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not going to say he's going to start. But if this thing gets off the rails, it wouldn't stun me at all if he winds up starting at some point this season. I never would have believed that. Never would have believed it. I don't know about you, but I just didn't think that was possible. But you know what? I've changed my mind. We're allowed to change our mind. As Herman Edwards once said, a situation with no plan is not a plan. You gotta change your mind sometimes. I mean, it's again, they haven't played a game yet, but I'd be concerned, man. Let me ask you a question. What's the biggest concern for this football team right now?
I think that the middle of inside linebacker to
offense or defense. To put it together.
Defense.
But ILB?
Oh, I have to put the sort of middle of the defense. You know, like if you're a baseball team and you got a bad shortstop, second base, and center field, you're gonna pack it. Remember the Phillies of like 8 years ago, right? When they just, they're putting like Odubel Herrera in center field, and they got Didi at shortstop, and he's barely hurt.
He couldn't play anymore.
He couldn't play anymore. I forget who they had at second before Stott. Segura. Even before Segura, they had somebody like
Scotty Jetpack.
Yeah, they were you're making it hard on your pitcher, right? Well, you're making it hard on your pass rush, just like last year, to get home if your interior defense can't cover anybody. So, that's that. And your outside corners struggle on that too, because then they get picked apart.
Before we move on, and we'll close this in a couple minutes, but Trotter Jr. is the most instinctive linebacker they have. I get that he's only 6 feet, and he was 228 at the combine. By the way, for people talk about how small he is, I think he lifted pretty well. I'm going to look that up right now. Someone told me.
That shouldn't shock anybody.
Yeah, 21. It's pretty good. And Mitchell would 20 or 21, right? That's pretty good for a guy who's 6 feet even. By the way, it's not like he's 5'10". I know you'd rather be 6'2". But he's just not fast enough. But you know what? I don't care. He can make up with smarts. I'm fascinated to see how this works out here. Again, I would not be stunned if he winds up starting the season. I'd be concerned. I mean, this to me is the biggest issue with this football team, the inside backer group. They have plenty of guys. That's not the issue. It's the quality.
Right. And again, that's where we separate. That's a good thing for Jeremiah Trotter if he emerges. I don't know. That's a great thing for the Eagles if they have to start Jeremiah Trotter or rookie.
True.
Because it just shows you what they don't have at that position. So we'll see.
I want to see Burks because I know Cosell likes him. He's got really good size.
Yeah.
Started plenty of games. He might be a better third ILB, but you know what? He's got to get healthy, and they're in dire straits right now. They got like 7 guys who can do it. Van Sumeren is an athlete. He's an excellent special teams player. He just hasn't, although the tape was great last year for that one game against the Giants. You're talking about a guy's really not played a lot. So they just don't have a lot of choices here.
All right, we'll get to the back end in a second. We'll pause real quick to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get a great deal. If not, you can always visit them at SkyMotorCars.com. We already talked about the safety picture. I mean, with CJ Gardner-Johnson out, it's fairly bleak. You got Reed, Blankenship. I guess we'll see what James Bradbury has learned and what he can do. I imagine he'll play in the preseason game at safety and get some reps there, and you'll get an idea of what it looks like.
Yeah, look, he ran with the ones this week when Gardner-Johnson wasn't there. We kind of know Rodgers is ahead of Ringo. He has been for this week. We'll see what happens in the preseason. Mitchell got some work on the outside this week, in addition to playing the slot. At some point, he's going to have to start getting work with the ones outside, but they got plenty of time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I mean, you've got Tyler Hall is playing inside. Mannix is playing safety right now because of issues at safety. Andre Sam we're going to see in this game. Sean Stevens has made some plays, number 41. Tyler Hall's the backup nickel. That's pretty much it. Eli Ricks is running behind Rodgers and Ringo. So that's pretty much it, folks. And I think we've covered just about everything. I mean, one thing I do want to mention, Patrick Johnson's had a really good camp. We haven't talked about it.
Andrew DeCecco, and thanks for telling me. Andrew DeCecco wrote a really nice story about why he's been flashing. He added a lot of muscle in the offseason. Guess who? Did you see who he's working out with? Did you read Andrew's story?
I haven't read it yet. Yeah, go ahead.
Former renowned college defensive coach and 1-year Eagles defensive line coach, Pete Jenkins. Love Pete Jenkins. You remember Pete Jenkins?
Vaguely.
Come on, LSU Pete Jenkins.
Vaguely.
Oh, he was a renowned college defensive line coach, and he was part of, I think, Chip Kelly's staff for 1 year.
Oh, see,
and he's the greatest dude, but he's a total fish out of water, being in Philly and sort of being more of a down south college guy.
Okay,
but he was an awesome dude. Great,
nice.
Dude.
I did not know that, but I remember Tommy Brazier. You know, Andy.
I remember. Yeah.
Who must have been about 80 when he was coach or something. He was really up. He did a good job, though. Andy kept bringing him back because he was so good.
Yeah.
But anyway, wow. Okay, I did not know that. But we need to mention it because he's not just a special teams player. Well, again, I get it. The Eagles have a ton of edge rushers. So they don't need him to play the edge. He's been a really good special teams player. But you know what? You never know, man. You never know what happens if he's needed. So this is good. He's doing this.
Feather in the cap. It's obviously going to probably be between him and Okwara for the last spot because that's a special team spot.
I don't see any way Patrick Johnson won't be here this fall.
I agree.
He's really good. I mean, of course, special teams player. Acquires long. He's had an injury history. He had some flashes in camp, but you just mentioned it. Special teams ties always go to the special teams guy. Always.
There you go. All right. Just a few guys that if we haven't mentioned yet to keep an eye on. You know, I think Jalix Hunt in this preseason game should get a lot of snaps.
Sure.
We'll see his development both as a edge rusher, special teamer. I want to see those interior guys, Tui Pelotu, Booker. But really, Adam, the guys I'm probably going to be keyed on, especially defensively, are all those corners that you just mentioned. Ricks, Ringo, Job, who's a great special teamer. Can't count him out. Tyler Hall. Want to see Avonte Maddox at safety a little bit, see how that works out. And I think that, right now it's kind of like a blender. You just want to see which ones really come out and show what they got in the preseason games.
Well, that's it. I mean, and the good thing is the coaches get tape against another team.
Yes.
That's great. That's so helpful. Even if it's not good, at least they have a basis. Because in a joint practice, you can't tackle. Well, I'm sorry. Let me put an asterisk on that. The third team tackles. But okay, this is a real game here, so they get tape, and this is good. The coaches then can make their correction.
Awesome. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.